Hello and welcome to Art and Self. I'm Cindy Ingram, your host and the founder of Art Class Curator, the Curated Connections Library, and the Art and Self Connection Circle. This is a podcast where we experience the range and depth of what it means to be human, seen through our connections and conversations about works of art. These art conversations are here to show you that art is here for you as a catalyst, a challenger, a coach, and a comfort. Before we get started, take a moment to fill up your lungs with a deep breath. Connect with your body and your mind and your spirit, and get ready to discover what art has to show you. Hello, everybody. I just want to come on here and apologize for not having a new episode last week. I did not do my Word of the Year update. Last week was my daughter's spring break, and we also went on a trip, and also I had a family member have an accident, and he is in the hospital. So just did not happen, and I was really more thinking about getting through the week rather than, pondering the essence of what it means to be an artist. So thank you for your grace on the little added break. And today's episode, we have Kelly Ferguson, who is a photographer, and also we had a really delightful conversation about a really fascinating work of art. So I hope you enjoy our conversation, and here it is. Oh, also I have one little correction. When I was doing the show notes and the images for the podcast, I realized that I had given the wrong title to the artwork that Kelly chose. The choices were One of the choices I had said was Demure Debutante by Miss Meatface. Actually, that was one of the artworks I was going to choose from Miss Meatface. In actuality, the artwork we looked at was called Desire by Miss Meatface. Hello, I am so pleased to welcome Kelly Ferguson to the podcast. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Cindy. This is so exciting. I'm just thrilled that you invited me and, so put the invitation out there.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be talking to you. And before we get started, can you introduce yourself for our listeners?
Absolutely. Well, my name is Kelly Ferguson, and I was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I am a photographer. I've been doing that for about 5 years now professionally, and I love art. I love a lot of art inspires my photography and life in general, so I get inspiration from a lot of different places, and people also really inspire me.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Good. I had so much fun picking art for you because I have a form that listeners fill, or the guests fill out, that kind of lists their favorite things to talk about, and your list was so good. I was like, oh, I love all these things too. And I was like, so I thought originally when you were going to come on, I was like, oh, I'll just choose all photographs. But I actually ended up only having one photograph in the batch. No, okay. Two. There's two. One of them is just so artistic looking that I forgot that it was a photograph.
Cool.
So we'll just go ahead and share them. Then I'll give you the title, and just so the listeners can know what we're looking at. But don't spend too much time looking at the title, interpreting the title, because we really want to focus on the image. So I actually have 5 images. Usually I choose 4. Okay. And I always remember to try to pare it down to 4, but then I didn't. So we're just going to leave, because now I'm like, oh, I don't know which one I would take out. So we're just going to keep them all in. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. A second to do that, because I can't do it and talk at the same time. Oh no, I'm sorry. I forgot. I can't see the titles that way. Okay, here we are. All right. And then I'll make these bigger once we've chosen one. So this one is called Demure Debutante by Kat Toronto, aka Miss Meatface.
Oh, wow.
And then we have Intertwined by Brooke Shaden.
Oh my goodness.
Dance of the Nine Obols by Ithel Colquhoun, and I do not know how to say that last name, so apologies to Miss Colquhoun. Self-Portrait with Thorn, Necklace, and Hummingbird by Frida Kahlo. And Figure in Movement by Francis Bacon.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I can see why you chose all the ones you did based on kind of what I offered you. The first one, however, is really sticking out to me. I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
one,
All right.
definitely out of all of them is kind of what I'm drawn to the most.
Sweet. Yeah, I had two by this artist and I had to pare it down. Um, but they're pretty amazing. They're pretty amazing. Awesome. Okay,
Oh,
so this is your choice?
yes,
Going with this
absolutely.
one.
Hands down, no question.
Okay, so we have Demure Debutante by Kat Toronto, aka Miss Meatface. Let me make this a little bit bigger. All right. All right, so what drew you to this?
Okay, well, first of all, it feels very drag to me. And I mentioned to you before that I'm really inspired by drag queens and drag artists. And this one to me really has elements of that in it. So, of course, I'm drawn to that aspect and the portraits that are also like these kind of old-timey, old-fashioned portraits that are kind of behind what I see the main figure to be in the image. So I don't know if you want me to
Okay.
go ahead and kind of dive more
Yeah.
deeper into what I'm seeing,
Okay.
or
Yeah, that was so that
but
your first, I just want to capture your first reactions. And so yeah, let's
yeah.
just can you describe it and then I will follow up with anything that I noticed too about the description before we start interpreting.
Okay. Well, I'm seeing just this like floral, real intense floral backdrop. It could be wallpaper or um, I'm kind of interpreting it as like just a real florally
Mm-hmm.
wallpaper in the back. And then there's this figure also in a floral dress. So they kind of like blend in a little bit to the background. And they have what looks to be like this headpiece and like mask that kind of goes around the face,
Mm-hmm.
and um, like a bright pink lipstick on this figure, kind of, you know, hand gloves and a cigarette, and just a very, I don't know how I would describe the pose, but kind of like, hello, I'm here with my cigarette.
Yeah, like
Standing
very
there
sort of
on the
like
wall.
prim or not prim, but like confident, kind of
Yes,
badass, like
badass stance there.
yeah.
Yes. And the only part that I see um, that's not kind of covered up in clothing or garments or mask or is like the neck area with, and they have a
Mm-hmm.
string of pearls there, and the mouth is exposed with like a bright pink lipstick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, they're kind of in this, uh, form fitted floral dress with a belt kind of cinched around the waist. And, you wouldn't be able to tell if this is a, you know, male, female, trans person, who knows? And so I kind of like the mystery of that,
Yeah.
even though there is like a feminine presence there with the florals, but you just don't know. Just
Yeah.
don't know what that is. Um, and then behind them is, what looks like to be hanging on a wall. It's like an old-fashioned, old-time photograph, black and white of a female. Um, they're hanging on the wall. It's like a framed photo. And then below that, what it looks like a antique radio. And on top of that is another photograph there of a little girl, kind of sitting there on a lounge. What do you call those? Like just a bench or something?
Yeah.
uh, I don't know
Some
what you
sort of
call those.
cushioned bench. What is it? I don't know the
Cushioned
right
bench.
word.
Yeah. There's this ashtray there, a vase with a rose in it. And yeah, I'm just kind of my eye goes around all around the um, the artwork itself
Yeah.
to
Oh, that was a
see.
great description. I think I'm like I knew you can always tell like kind of artists that are used to it. Like, oh yeah, you picked up on every detail. There's like a
Yeah.
plastic plant in the side. I think it looks plastic to me, like
Oh.
on the edge. And then
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Like
yeah,
kind of
and
plastic foliage
yeah, and then like
in there.
the headdress is
Mm-hmm.
like this black form-fitting thing. It goes over her neck and covers her
Uh-huh.
eyes and her nose and her head, and it's got this golden crown type of image painted on it, maybe. And then
Yes.
there's a silver mask over the eyes.
Yep.
So I think that's, and these gloves are so fascinating too. I'm like, they're see
Right? They're
through.
they're kind of like they look like they're latex or something,
Yeah.
but like a not necessarily skin tone, but they are a nudish type color.
Yeah. And
Slightly,
they make me think, when you see on movies the surgeon like putting the glove on and snapping
yes.
it, like the evil surgeon that's like about to do
Right,
something
right.
evil. Like that's
Yeah,
a vibe I get from those gloves. It's like something, I don't know, it's strange, like
totally.
that rubber
Yeah,
snap sound. Okay, so,
totally.
so there's
Yeah.
our description. What part
Yeah.
of this do you want to start with? What do you want to focus on first?
Um, I love that. Okay, so we could start with the photographs, maybe the black and white
Mhm.
photographs that are um, kind of off to the side of the,
Yeah, sounds good.
yeah.
I was just at
So,
my mom's house this past
uh-huh,
weekend in Atlanta, and she has a portrait of my grandma and my grandpa, or my nana and my papa, on the wall, like a
uh-huh,
portrait of them when they were older, and then right under it is a portrait of them when they were younger. And this looks just like the
yes,
hair and everything of
yes,
my nana when she was just married. And this would have been like probably the 40s, because I know they got married
yep,
before World War II. So this is like a very like, yeah, that sort of 30s 40s vibe to it.
yes. And would you say like the photo of the younger the younger portrait of the child that maybe is like 10 somewhere
Mm-hmm.
around
Yeah.
there. Do you think that's probably from like the 20s maybe or
Yeah, I would think so, because it looks, it's the one above. I didn't realize that it
uh-huh.
had color in it until I actually looked at it. Like to me, it was black and white, and then I started to look at it. I'm like, oh wait, she's kind of have there's some color in there.
Yeah, it's
Um,
kind of like a sepia.
yeah,
I don't know if that was sort of the style back then, but I mean, I of course I love black and white photographs, and it also reminds me of photographs that I would have seen of my grandmother or something
yeah.
as well. Um, the hair is great
It is,
in
and
this
both of
one,
them. Like
in both of them. Yeah,
I think I had that haircut as a kid. Like that
the
it was
little
a little bit
bob.
longer, and my dad called me Prince Valiant.
Oh my God,
Um,
I love that.
I'm like, yeah, that's it. Um,
Yeah, it's like a classics kind of bob, like
yeah.
with the bangs and everything. Super cute.
I'm wondering if these two are the same person, and that's like her as a kid and then
Mhm.
her older, or is that her child? But now she's not old enough to have a child, that, or maybe she is.
Yeah, I kind of get this generational inspiration from it, that maybe the two people hanging on the wall is kind of like inspired by this more modern current like figure um in the floral dress. I don't
Hmm.
know. But yeah, I mean, or they could be the same person,
Hmm.
but they definitely feel like they are of different like ages. We've got the
Yeah.
10, maybe the 10-year-old kind of age around there, and then maybe a woman in her 20s or
Yeah.
something above that. And um, maybe someone a little older in that main. Um, I would say that this was like, you know, taken live. I don't know. This seems like a photograph to me
Yeah. I
rather
believe,
than a
yeah, this
painting,
is this
right?
is a
Okay.
photograph. Yep.
Yeah.
It is. That's one of the, when I said there was only one photograph, I was like, wait, no, wait, there is. This one's a photograph too. It's
Yeah.
so painterly.
Yes. So it's like a photo, photos within a photo
Yes.
that I really like about that. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot to kind of think about. It makes me think about, what inspired the photographer who took it,
Hmm.
kind of where they might have been coming from and what story they wanted to tell. But I'm getting it has like this very generational feel to it, kind of past, present, futuristic as well. So it's giving me different time frames.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
That past, present, future thing is interesting because I keep looking at it and I'm thinking our main figure there is she's they've got such a vibe of the past. Like the dress is like a
Mhm.
older style. It's got these like ruffles and it's got this like um silhouette that's kind of an old fashioned silhouette, and then like
Uh-huh.
it goes up to their neck and it's like it's very old fashionedy. But
Yes.
we've got like the shiny leather and the headdress
Yes.
thing that looks very like alien, and the gloves
Uh-huh.
that are like really off-putting. So it's like that's the future in there.
Yeah.
But and it's amazing to think like, and I get this every now and then as I think like how drastically different what it means to be a person now than it was back then, and like gender and how fluid gender
Yes.
is now, and how like those options were they were there. I mean, that they were not the option wasn't there, like the
Yes.
gender was fluid then. It's just not,
Yes.
you weren't allowed to. um
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's really striking, like contrast between the past and the present, and then what
Yes.
will be in the future. Like, where's this all
Totally.
going?
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up because yeah, it definitely does speak of that gender fluidity and um, yeah, the different ways that that is embodied and expressed and um, yeah, I mean, it just leaves me very curious about that aspect
Hmm.
too. Um, so
So,
yeah,
oh,
I find that, yeah, no, go ahead.
okay, yeah, I was gonna ask about the my I keep staring at that mask thing
Uh-huh.
that they're wearing, and
Yes.
what's your take on that? Other than we got the sort of like it's a futuristic thing, but any.
Uh-huh. Okay, so I'm getting like, I mean, it's such a dramatic headpiece. Like, I don't know what era it kind of makes me think of, if it's like Victorian,
Mhm.
um, maybe not Victorian. I'm thinking of like the black and gold part
Yeah.
specifically. But then how it wraps around the face and kind of covers the nose and goes down the neck, that takes it into a whole different um, place that feels very futuristic kind of to me,
Yeah.
but it has a very queen like, it gives like a queen like energy to it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like
and
kind of queen, kind of dominatrix, a little bit
yeah,
of ancient Egypt looking to me too. Like
yeah,
there's
there
something
you go. Yeah.
Egyptian about it.
Uh-huh. Perhaps maybe not Victorian.
But I see
I
the
don't know.
shapes, like the crown, I can see the Victorian too. Like I can, it's like
Yeah,
a little, it's like a mix of a lot of things.
yeah, it
And
really
then the
is.
mask is kind of like Mardi Gras, it's like, oh.
Yeah, really, a very simple silver kind of Mardi Gras mask shape. Yeah,
Mhm.
over the eyes. Um,
What do you think the artist, like, why did they choose to include this
yeah,
headdress?
I mean, it's so many layers there. It's like a layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And so, I mean, that in itself, it just kind of makes me think of the different layers of people and their history, their family of origin, um,
Mhm.
influences. Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
it just like I'm just
oh,
getting layers from it, you
I just
know?
had the thought too that, okay, so it's a mask. We're not seeing the
Um,
identity of
right.
this person, or their facial identity anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's hidden.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but there's so much personality in what they've chosen to cover themselves with. And then I look at the photo of the woman on the wall,
Mm-hmm.
and I am thinking she's probably wearing just as much of a mask as they are, because there was
Mm-hmm.
only like a few ways to be a woman
Oh
back
yeah.
then. When we see pictures of
Uh-huh.
girls from this time, like they all look the same. Like they're all
True.
dressed the same. They have the same hair. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that it looks identically to my grandmother's picture, like it's, and then I'm wondering like who she is underneath. Like, what is
Mm-hmm.
she hiding behind a mask too?
Right.
Um,
That is a great insight there. Yeah. Um, yeah, I wonder with the black and white photo of the woman if I mean if it was like a graduation photo of some kind and
mm,
everybody was photographed the same, I remember in my high school graduation photos,
right.
we all had the same garments on, and
That black drapey thing. Did you have the
the
black
black,
drapey thing?
exactly, exactly, the black drapey thing. Um, and yeah, there was a lot of expectations of how a woman like should behave. Like I'm just looking at the pearls in that neck in that
Mhm.
photograph, and um, like I wonder if that was their choice or
Yeah.
if it was kind of expected that they wear that. So I question, um, do they like feel themselves in that photo?
Mm,
Or does it really matter kind of what a person is wearing um, in order to really get an authentic portrait of somebody? That
yeah.
kind of question comes up.
Do you
Um,
do port? Do you do? Is that one of your kind of main things you do? Is
yes,
portraits as
I
a
do.
photographer?
I do love portraits very much so, and I do love kind of that cropped in, um, like pulled in pretty close that upper that top photograph
Hmm.
kind of presents. Just because I really love kind of zeroing in on the face of somebody. Um, and I think wardrobe can add or take away, distract or complement somebody.
Yeah.
And so, the simplicity of what is of what she's wearing in that photograph also really pulls me into her face, and her
Yeah.
expression there. And I wonder, is that smile a mask or is that a genuine kind of um is that genuine expression coming from her?
Yeah.
I don't know, there's so many questions you could go into with that and
Yeah.
explore. I
When
wonder.
you're doing photographs and you're like, and you are trying to really capture who the person is and their like
Mm-hmm.
authenticity,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is that thought process like on end of the photographer because I've only ever been on the other
Yes.
side, like what I'm trying to do.
Yes.
Um, like,
Yeah,
yeah.
my approach really is to have it feel very conversational,
Mm,
and less, uh, you know, okay, you know, tilt your head here and smile. I obviously do give some kind of posing direction, but I'm really also looking for the natural body language of somebody. So I'm really doing a lot of just observation, quick observations here and there, to just see how somebody moves and um, is just talking to me naturally. So I do incorporate just a lot of casual conversation in my photo shoots as I'm sort of picking up on their natural mannerisms. And
mhm.
I also want them to feel comfortable and relaxed, because I think that is what I ultimately want to come through, is like something really natural, genuine, and pure,
Mhm.
um, which I am getting in that photograph. I don't
Yeah.
feel anything necessarily. I mean, it is posed. It is a posed photo, but there's something genuine there. Now, if I could like zoom in on that image and kind of look at the eyes too, because I think that's also really telling. Excuse me. Also, the mouth can be a place where someone might hold stress or tension if they're uncomfortable,
Mm, yeah.
which I'm not really getting in that photograph. It feels pretty relaxed to me. Um,
Yeah, I was seeing if I could zoom
are
in.
you trying to
Sometimes
zoom
I'm
in?
able to do it, and sometimes I can't. So we're gonna see.
Yeah.
Sometimes I completely break everything. Zoom in. No, nothing's happening when I try to zoom in. Oh
Yeah.
no, there we are.
Oh, oh, yay. Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
uh-oh.
oh,
Okay.
yeah. So the eyes to me feel very relaxed. So whoever took that photograph, I feel like there was a symbiotic kind of connection there.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel too, um, it doesn't have an uncomfortable vibe to it to me.
Yeah, because that really does come through
Yeah.
in the pictures. I had a photo shoot done like in May or something, and
Uh-huh.
I was growing out my hair, which I abandoned. I've tried to do that so many times, didn't work. But I was growing my hair. I didn't feel confident. It was like really humid, and I was sweaty, and it was like my glasses kept fogging up,
Uh-huh.
and it was like you all across those pictures, all I could see was my like discomfort
Uh-huh.
with and it was like it was not the photographer did a great job. It was all just my energy on the other side of that, and I made me like really learn. Um,
Well, honestly, I think it is the photographer's job to really kind of direct that energy in the
mhm.
room,
Yeah,
and um, because the person being photographed, like, they're there to receive a service,
right,
and really I don't put the responsibility on anyone being photographed to um, be photogenic or anything like that. I don't even
right,
believe photogenic, whatever that is. I think everybody is photo, like, how should I say? What am I trying to say here? But
yeah. I was
uh,
like, what's the word? I know what you're
what's the
saying.
word? Do you know what I mean? Like, when I say photogenic, it kind of implies like some sort of standard or something that's acceptable,
I
you know?
think to me it feels like if the natural, authentic energy of the person comes
Yes,
across through the photo. Like
yes,
what's the word for what's the word for
yeah,
that? Where you can see their humanity, you can see their joy, you can
yes,
see their who they are, and then you just like you're embraced by them
yes,
through their photo. It's not
correct.
about like how pretty they are or whatever. It's
No,
about that energy that you were able to capture. And
exactly.
everybody has that like
Yes,
humanity
uh-huh,
in them. Um,
absolutely.
but the artist's job is to sort of pull to
Yeah,
capture that
well,
moment.
absolutely. And I think the only part that, um, you know, I ask anyone to bring and give to me is just a willingness to be there.
Hmm.
You know, that's it. Because
Yeah.
if there is an absolute, like, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be photographed right now, then that's something I want to like respect, and like
Mm.
sometimes it can be hard to change that mindset. However, there are people that come in who just have a deep belief that they can't be photographed well or have that natural part come out, and um, it's just something that I think everybody possesses, everybody has. It's just a matter of easing into that place. And some photographers are really great at bringing that out. And um, some struggle with that connection piece because I really do think that photography is a lot about connection and how you interact with people
Yeah.
at the time they're being photographed,
Yeah. Oh, that's really
which is what I
interesting.
love about it.
I know there was this. I'm trying to remember the name of the photographer. I'm not going to be able to pull it out of my head. I was working at a museum. It was like in the early 2000s, so there's no way I'm going to remember it. But there was these big photographs, and they were like this, just the head, neck, and shoulders,
Uh-huh.
and then they were printed. I want to say, I want to say they were like at least 3 feet tall
Uh-huh.
on the wall, and they're like, and they were all very simple. There was like plain white backgrounds, but those people had, you could just feel like, you could feel their heart, in the
Uh-huh.
photographs, and I was just like, how does, how did the artist do that? Like, it's just
Yeah.
amazing. Um,
I
and so it's
think
really fun to hear your thought process behind it too, because it's like, it's not as easy as you might think it is, it seems.
no. And I do think you have to have like a genuine interest in people,
Hmm.
but then again, I think of every photographer has a different style and approach. And some do not focus very much on connection. They just have a particular vision in mind and are able to get what they want out of their subject. But when
Hmm.
it comes to portraits is a very intimate personal thing,
Yeah.
and so going back to kind of my original like point on this is
Yeah.
that every photographer has a different kind of vision and point of view and something that they're trying to get, and then some have a a purpose of it really being about the person on the other side of the camera, like the subject. It's
Yeah.
about them and it's not about the photographer's point of view. Although you can't help that that's going to be um, integrated somehow into the photo because it's really like both perspective. It's like the perspective of the photographer that's coming out a little bit, and then also the person being photographed, which is kind of what I like about those portraits on the wall. It really makes me think about the photographer and seeing a little bit of that point of view as well as the individuals being photographed.
Yes. Okay. So that's a really great segue to a question I want to ask you. And
Okay.
it's going to take me a second to get this back not zoomed because I don't know how to do it. So I have to reload the whole file.
No worries.
There we go. Oh, that was
There it
easier than okay,
is.
we'll get this back up. I've never sat down and actually like figured out the steps. Okay. Um, so we talked about photography and capturing the person,
Hmm.
knowing that was a photograph within a photograph. So knowing that this is a photograph, what do you
Yes.
think the photographer, are we
Yeah.
seeing the photographer in this photo? And what's the relationship of the photographer to what we're seeing?
Yeah. Again, I really think that I'm getting uh like a lineage, that there's something about family lineage that perhaps was an inspiration of this photographer, of this, of the whole photo itself, that maybe was inspired and like inspired this photograph. I'm thinking as well that fashion was a part of it, and fashion as a form of expression as well as a form of covering up.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's something too, the fact that I mean this the figure on the right is
Mhm.
very much standing out. Like,
Yes.
but they're blending, like they're camouflaged in with the wallpaper.
Right.
And their their identity's hidden. They're in
Mhm.
these gloves.
Yes.
And we've been spending so much time talking about the photos in there
Yes.
that it's like we're so focused on those, and they're just sort of
Uh-huh.
blending in.
Correct.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so I do in general have this overall theme too of blending versus standing out,
Mm.
concealing versus like being really bold, because the we've got a pretty bold pattern here, a bold dress that they're wearing, this headpiece and mask. It's all very like, the gloves, even the stance of the the stance comes off as very confident to me,
Yeah.
and empowered. And so I'm getting from that main figure a sense of um, confidence in who they are,
Mm-hmm.
and not so much um, hiding, even though so much of them is covered up.
Yeah. It's interesting to me to notice, and we didn't, I don't think we've even brought it up in our description or anything, but that the gloves are translucent and we can see tattoos underneath them.
Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And for the figure being so covered,
Uh-huh.
uh, it's really interesting to be able to see that come through. So that would have been a deliberate
Yes.
choice of other ways they're showing their individuality or
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, kind of to just this like throwback from the past into the future, like maybe this is who I was then, this is who I am now. This is what was acceptable then. This is how I've incorporated some of that into who I am now. Like, just there's a lot of you know, layers into identity and self-expression, and
yeah.
that I'm getting from this, um, you know, rules versus rule breaker.
Yeah.
There's a lot of polarity um, in this image with the flowers, and the bright kind of feminine flowers versus the black and gold and metallics of the headpiece and the mask, the tattoos right there next to kind of the lacy, uh what do you call those? Like
Doily.
doily,
There's
kind
a
of.
doily, and then then there's like the round part. I know is a doily, but then there's like a
Yes,
lacy thing over the top of the radio.
like a drape that kind of is
Yeah.
pink drape that's over the antique
Yeah.
radio there.
I think these were all pulled from my grandma's house. Like she had lacy doilies and
Yeah, right.
everything.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like female woman kind of coming
Hmm.
through in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, there's like hard versus soft. Um,
Yep.
there's even okay. So I'm one. Okay, I know the plant on the left feels to me like it's fake because I can see that like
Yes.
that brown is always like that same color brown on any fake plant.
Yes.
But I'm wondering if the flowers are not fake because they have water in that. There's water in that
Yep.
vase.
Yep.
So then we have like fake versus real, fake versus
Mhm.
living.
Yes.
Um, we have like we have organic versus synthetic. We have like wooden elements versus like the metal or the leather and then
Mhm.
like so there's like then the synthetic rubber gloves. Um,
Yes.
there's like yeah there's a lot of like contrasting components. Um,
Absolutely. Um, the antique furniture,
mm,
radio there in contrast with the kind of futuristic
yeah.
uh, vibe I get from the mask and headpiece and gloves. Um, yeah, I mean, my eye just kind of wanders um, throughout the photograph,
Yeah,
throughout
it's
the image.
not, and it's not particularly easy to keep looking
Uh-huh.
at because of this
Uh-huh.
like very bold pattern. It's like a little bit
Yes.
jumbly. My eyes are getting a little bit jumbled if I focus too much on the pattern. Like I'm trying to actively not look at the pattern so I don't get a little
Hmm.
cross-eyed.
Yes, because the pattern in the dress up against the pattern against that
Mm,
the floral wall background, it's very jarring. It's
yeah,
not uh, like she stands out against that background, but I mean, it's not. Um, there's nothing that really blends.
yeah, and it's interesting because I
You know.
I see there's like a purplish blue flower in the background. There is a purplish flower
Uh-huh.
on her dress. There's a red flower in the background. There's a red, there's red on both. There's like a
Yes.
orange on one and a yellow on the other. There's a black background on one and black background on the other. But
Yes.
they're so jarring and different at the same
Yeah.
time that it's like it's it's a
Yeah.
lot.
I've seen photographers who, well, it's kind of on trend too sometimes to like mix patterns
Hmm.
together, and it just kind of goes. There's
Hmm.
like this to me feels like that it doesn't have that kind of
Yeah.
feeling to it where mixing patterns and colors and
Yeah. These don't go together.
these do not go, right?
Yeah.
um I'm trying
Now I
to
was like,
see
oh,
if
my
there's any.
eyes hurt.
I know,
I
right?
looked so hard at it.
It is a bit difficult to kind of look at. Very busy, right?
Yeah,
I would say very busy, kind of
indeed.
lots of foliage. Trying to see if there's anything else that's standing out to me. um
I think the fact that she's smoking is
mhm.
interesting because there's the like traditional um or whatever that called ashtray, and I think my other grandma had that one. Um,
Yes.
and there's a cigarette in it, and then she's smoking, or she's not. She's holding a cigarette, but
Uh-huh.
that also feels very um from the past too. I mean, like people smoke obviously now, but like
Yes.
there's something about like that, like watching, like Mad Men and all they're all smoking. They're all kind of standing in that kind of dress, like smoking the
Yes.
cigarettes and holding them that way. And how all
Uh-huh.
the houses had the ashtrays in them, and then
Yes.
now it's like not like that. So that feels very like of the past too. Like Cruella Deville, it's like the way she's holding it. It's just
Uh-huh.
very. Um, I wish it had one of those little holders like Cruella Deville had. But she's
Oh,
got the gloves
yes,
to protect her fingers. But
she does.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely getting, I mean, maybe, which kind of makes me believe that maybe there was something, either it could be a version of this, like this all could be the same person,
Mhm. Oh,
or or that main figure is like the live figure, I guess, um, witnessed maybe their mom kind of was a smoker. And so you kind of
mm,
like pick up on these mannerisms and ways that people smoked, So I wonder if
yeah,
that, because it seems like that position and how they're holding the cigarette is feels very natural.
yeah.
Like maybe they've kind of seen it's been a part of their experience growing up or something.
Mm-hmm. Okay, every time my eyes land on the right hand that's resting on
Uh-huh.
the radio, it is so awkward. It looks like
It
a
is.
dummy hand or like a. I keep trying to put my hand like it just to see like how it
Uh-huh.
feels, and I'm like, it's not natural. But then I'm also like,
No.
I know when I've done photo shoots, I have not known what to do with my hand, and so the
Yes.
photographers are always like, okay, do this with your hand, clench it and then relax it, or all the different things that you can do to
Uh-huh.
like make your hand relax. Um, because I typically put them behind my back, like, no, your arms are getting cut off that way. Um,
Yes.
but that hand is just that, like, she feels really natural and confident,
Mm-hmm.
except that hand doesn't. That hand
No, it
feels
doesn't.
like
Yeah.
forced or
Yes. The one absolutely.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, the one on the her left hand feels very natural and comfortable and
Yeah.
organic. The one on the right definitely feels lifeless and that it's just kind of been flopped there.
Mm-hmm. Because if I
Yeah.
were standing next to something, my hand would be flat on it, and my
Yes.
wrist would kind of relax down a little.
Uh-huh.
But hers, it's like it's on its side. It's kind of tense, and I'm wondering if it's because they wanted to show the tattoo.
Oh,
Um, so I'm wondering if that's why, it just feels very deliberate the way they've done that. So I'm wondering what like,
I think that's a very good observation. I think you're right. I would say that that was an intentional choice to
yeah,
me. It feels very like, okay, kind of turn your hand this way and just, tilt it up or tip it up and just
yeah,
to expose the tattoos on the wrist. Um, but yeah, it does have a very, it just kind of feels lifeless there, doesn't it?
yeah.
And
And I'm wondering if
unnatural.
it's like that's the only part that is interacting with the old stuff, like the old
Uh-huh.
timey stuff. So maybe like there's something about like when interacting with that old stuff that it, something
Uh-huh.
happens or um,
Yeah, say more about how you're seeing the interaction between that and the old timey photographs.
yeah, it's like she's standing by it.
Uh-huh.
She's or they're standing by it. They're facing us, looking out at us. I presume we can't really see the eyes, but we know they're there.
Yeah.
Well, now I
They
want to
seem to
zoom in
be
on the eyes.
yeah, they
Uh,
seem to be focused directly toward
yeah,
the camera. Huh?
yeah, and then but then okay, so now I'm just like I always do this with my students. I'm like stand like the pose, and so like if I were to
Uh-huh.
stand, they have one shoulder back, that arm
Uh-huh.
that's resting just like this. So it's like I'm like this is going to give me some information if I just do this. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, there's just God, it makes it feel more posed when I do it when I stand that way.
Uh-huh.
Like it's really not natural the whole thing.
Right.
She looked or they looked so natural until I did
Yeah, it's
that.
like it's a there's a lot about that main figure that feels very natural and you're absolutely right that the hand resting on the radio doesn't.
Yeah, so
Um
it's like
mhm.
when you interact with the past,
I see.
think about how it used to be in the past. Like maybe like there's like a uh, something that happens to your body where you're not a like. I mean, just I was saying earlier that I was at my mom's house. Like I went to visit them, and I noticed when I'm there,
Hmm.
I move differently. I act
Mhm.
differently. I hold my hands differently. Like everything feels a little like it's like I'm because they don't live near me and I see them a few times a year. It's like my body is like, oh, we're a kid now again, and this is how we have to
Uh-huh.
move ourselves. And
Yes.
so, like maybe that hand could be, you know,
Huh?
that type of vibe. I'm not sure.
Yes. I see what
Um,
you're saying. Yes.
yeah. Uh,
Absolutely. Because, and I could say too, looking at the the photo and the portrait of the younger girl, that doesn't seem too natural to me either. Like,
mhm,
I don't think that it does feel very posed and kind of put on.
mhm,
Um, and so how they're, sitting there on that lounge chair, cushion bench, I would wonder if that's how the body language there doesn't feel like something they would naturally do if they
yeah.
were asked to go sit on that cushion.
Yeah.
Um, but I think back in the day, it kind of was part of the style to pose kids in a certain way,
Yeah.
you know? And like you said before, everyone was kind of photographed similarly. Um, and so, yeah, that's kind of intriguing to me as well. Just is the, I don't know, what do you get anything else from that photograph?
Yeah. I keep trying
Yeah,
to envision that little girl, like how she's like.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
have I have two little girls, or two girls who are a little bit older than her. Mine are 10 and 13, and I think she's right at the age of my youngest or a little bit younger. But I'm like, how would she be, and how would she sit if she was like sitting on this bench? I can see like her putting her hands down and like her legs kind of wobbling, and like
Uh-huh.
if it's like too tall for her, and like she would
Right.
kind of lean forward, and like that's her like little child way of being. And now she's just like, okay, now you have to be this posed version of a girl, and this is how a girl should be in the photo. And like, I mean, there's something so um like she's going to what's the word, like manners school, or I mean like she's taught how to be a girl, taught how to be a woman. Like this is how you do it. You have to wear
Uh-huh.
shoes like this. I'm sure those socks have ruffles. And there you have to wear this dress, and you have to have your hair like you have to be this way. And then this is your way of being. And then you have to, as you get older, these are your model. You have to look like this. And then when you get older, you do your hair with that little fluffy, like the
Uh-huh.
girl does at the top. Like, and that is your one way of being a woman.
Yes.
Um, and then the one on the right is like, I can be whatever woman or man
Mhm.
or non-binary person I want. I
Yeah.
can be all. I can be all, and I can be me, and I can. Um, and it's like it's so powerful. Um,
Yes.
Such a powerful contrast when I think about that little girl and like what her options were.
Right.
Um,
And again, if the photographer, what their their idea of how a, a girl that age should be photographed, because we don't, I mean, I wonder if it was a
mm.
male or female who took,
Oh,
or like who took that photograph. Um, and yeah, sometimes too, there's when a child reaches a certain age, like there's some confusion at times of like, okay,
mm,
how do I photograph this child that, still captures that youth and innocence,
mm.
and, you know, but not kind of pushing it toward an age that they're not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Um,
Yeah, that like that. Yeah.
And
That's exactly the age my girls are at now. It's just like
uh-huh,
they're not yet women, but they are not
yes,
little girls anymore.
no,
And it's weird.
yes. And so I get that kind of sort of like awkward in between
Hmm.
place sometimes where you're like, oh gosh, because that little girl doesn't look exactly comfortable.
Yeah.
Um, and
I think I've been looking at this. Okay, sorry, I always get at this point. I like always find myself in it. I'm like, where am I?
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, that I think I've been looking at her as if she's me the whole time.
Oh, uh-huh.
One, because I used to have that haircut when I was a kid. It was a little bit longer, but it was that exact haircut.
Hmm.
I was like that body shape, like I was a little taller, but like, and then I was probably that like awkward looking and like I didn't feel right in my skin. And I always felt kind of like an alien, I was just felt like, no, now I know I'm like, oh, I had ADHD and I like all these things I didn't know yet. But that's how I felt. Like I just felt like I just didn't fit. And like I just get that vibe from her so much that I'm like, oh, I've been looking at her like she's me this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because of all the other stuff that like, oh, there's my grandma. And I was like, oh, there's my grandma's house. Like, oh, there's my other grandma. Like, they're all here. Um,
Hmm.
but I don't know that I've ever gotten to the place where I can be as badass as that, as the figure on the right. Like, or do I
Hmm.
even want to be that badass too? So,
Hmm.
okay.
That's great. If I were to kind of take that approach, kind of going around this photograph, I would say that, when I was that age, 10 roughly, I kind of had very short hair, like a bowl haircut, maybe not quite as long as what's there in that photo, but I did not like wearing dresses. Um, I did not like wearing skirts, anything like that. I was like pants all the way.
Yeah.
That's what I felt the most comfortable in. But I also felt very much like a girl, I'm a,
Right.
cisgendered female, um, but I felt very comfortable in myself in pants and shirts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, going as I, grew older, in my high school, college years, I grew my hair out a bit, um, kind of a little bit as a way to camouflage my sexuality a bit, initially, to not be sort of called out. I was
Mm-hmm.
kind of hiding. So long hair was a bit of a way to hide
Yeah.
my sexuality. And I never really identified as like lesbian, but at the time, that's kind of what you were, either gay or lesbian.
Right.
And then when I really wanted to like come out, I chopped all of my hair off because that's sort of what I felt like a lesbian would look like. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
was sort of my construct of like, well, gay people have, lesbians have short, kind of like short hair. And that was sort of me kind of like coming out and identifying as that. And now if I were to, what I see myself in the other figure is, it really just doesn't matter. Like I'm, how you want to express yourself and show up is a completely your, it's about you and your,
Mm.
less influenced about what other people perceive me to be, and like how to, more coming from the inside out.
Yeah.
And being more fluid, and if I feel like wearing this one day, I'm going to wear that. And if I feel like if I want to have longer hair, I'm going to do that. And so I feel there's just a lot of freedom,
Mm-hmm.
bravery, and boldness in that main figure. And to me, it does speak about like gender and sexuality and fluidity,
Yeah.
and that it can look so many different ways.
Yeah, I love what you said about, oh, I loved all of it, but I loved what you said about how they're dressed for them, and and kind of made me go into their head a little bit and be like, I don't think they care at all what we're saying about this artwork right now. You know,
Totally.
they're like, this is me and whatever. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, and then I look at the little girl and put, of course, I'm putting myself in here and I'm like, oh, she
Uh-huh.
deeply cared what everyone thought. And it's so free. There's such freedom in that.
Uh-huh. And I think one other thing I would also say too is that if those other images are a younger version of this person, in this floral dress, um, I would venture to say that they would say, yep, that was me at 10, and that was me in my 20s. And maybe I wasn't the most comfortable and in my skin, but it's still a reflection of me and who I was, and it's authentic. But this is me now as just maybe feeling more confident in who they are. Uh, so
Yeah,
it tells me a little bit of a journey of that.
I love
This whole
that.
thing takes me on a journey of that.
It's like those pictures are that's the path to
To that.
getting that confidence. Yeah.
And
Huh.
I would venture to say too that maybe there's something they love about them in each of those
Mm-hmm.
photographs too. Um, I
Yeah.
know I certainly feel that way when I look back at photos of myself. Like it takes me back to who I was at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I love about photographs too. Even if
Yeah.
it brings you back to good memories, painful memories, nostalgic memories. Um, it's part of your life,
Yeah.
and it's really documenting your history. Um, and how cool is that to have photos that kind of transport you back to those times?
Yeah.
Um,
That's really beautiful.
yeah,
And I think that and we've been talking for about an hour, and I think that is a perfect
yeah,
thought to end on.
I love it.
Um, yes. Okay, so let me tell you what I do know about this artist, 'cause I don't usually,
Okay.
I try not to read about the artist or the artwork because I want to come in fresh, but I'm like, I accidentally read because I was just too curious.
Uh-huh.
So this is Kat Toronto, and
Oh,
I I am pretty sure I tried to find their pronouns. I could not find them on any of the things,
okay.
but they had a
Okay.
hysterectomy, um, and a lot of their art is about kind of losing or not having those organs anymore, and what it means to be a woman and what it means to be feminine and stuff like that.
Wow.
So I thought that was really
Fascinating.
interesting. And then their name is Miss Meatface, and
Uh-huh.
then the artist name is Kat Toronto, and then there's like stage name or whatever is Miss Meatface.
So
So
the artist's stage name is Miss Meatface.
Miss Meatface, yeah. So
Is there
I
any?
think she is probably the pronouns, but yeah,
Uh-huh.
I looked on like Twitter and I was looking to all the places. I'm like, well, they're not listed anywhere, but
Yeah.
um, yeah. So
Huh.
they have a really good Instagram, really
Okay.
interesting stuff. So I checked. There was one, the other one I was going to choose was
Huh?
another person like a mask, and they were standing behind. There was a pattern background. They were standing in this like top that kind of looked at the sky, and they were holding these flowers in their hand, and all the flowers in the vase looked like a uterus and ovaries and fallopian tubes. So it was
Huh.
really cool. But I liked this one because it had the photograph component for you. So um,
Yeah.
I'm glad you chose it because I was kind of wanting you to choose this
This
one.
was this was full
Awesome.
of just all kinds of layers and things to talk about.
Yes,
It was fun to kind of bounce back and forth with you on that.
indeed. So it was wonderful for you to be on today, and it was a delightful conversation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. This was really great.
Thank you so much for listening to Art and Self. And if you loved what you heard, please consider leaving me a rating or a review on iTunes. And share this episode with one friend who you know needs to hear what we talked about today. You will find links to the artworks that we discuss over at the show notes at artandself.com. And you can also join my email list to get notified of all of the new upcoming episodes. The videos of these episodes are also available over on YouTube at Art and Self. And you can also follow me on social media, on Instagram at Art and Self and on Facebook at Art and Self Cindy. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful week. I'll see you next time.